Welcome to the Maverick Paradox Podcast, where we explore what it is to be a maverick and discover effective modes of leadership. I am Judith and my mission is to propel the maverick mindset into a world where character and integrity will ultimately have a higher premium than personality and bureaucracy. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you'd like to continue with me, then please subscribe to my podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or one of the other popular podcast platforms. Today, we depart from my usual conversation with format to allow me to talk to you about when the doors close. In 2005, 18 people banded together with the goal to write a business book. We decided that we would each write a chapter depicting the journey of a business from start-up to success. That book became Business Wise, Words of Wisdom for Small Businesses with Big Ambitions. Recently, I discovered that Business Wise was translated into Chinese, and this made me take a new look at that old book. My chapter was called When the Doors Close. It is about Keith, which is an entrepreneur who learned to play and win the reputation game. Mavericks know how to build reputation. Find out what Keith did. When you leave the corporate world, it can be scary and daunting, especially if your exit was not one of your choosing. Redundancies often spill out into the world. New consultants with dreams about how things will be different now that they're working for themselves and how they can now create real difference and huge rewards. Before a new entrepreneur can create any wealth, they need at first to build, then maintain and enhance the reputation. This is the story of Keith, one such entrepreneur who learned to play and win the reputation game. No reputation, no business. Keith was a learning and development executive who was becoming dissatisfied with his job, credible in his field, but fed up with the way things were. One day he learned that his company was merging with another, and he would be one of the 150 people surplus to requirements. He would get a reasonable payoff, 4 months' gross salary, so enough to pursue his dream of setting up on his own, but not enough to squander. He needs to get clients, and fast. The first thing Keith did was begin networking, but it wasn't working for him. He wasn't getting clients, but he wasn't sure why. He was able to articulate his business offering and some great proposition stories. He had some great technical networking skills. So why wasn't it working? The adage that people buy people relates primarily to the power of their reputation, and this was something that Keith needed to learn. Personal reputation is really a social evaluation of an individual. Whenever we are engaging with another person, especially around services, we are in fact selling ourselves. Great successful business owners soft sell themselves. In this context, it is about pull selling, who they are and what they believe in, not push selling, but more about that later. Social evaluation considers the values of the individual and how consistent and authentic they are every time we experience them. This evaluation is based on more than the mere presence of an individual. It's what we know or think we know about the individual. So how do we decide that we know a person? Assessing the reputation of others is a complex, subconscious process. It seems that very little conscious thought goes into what we believe. It's a gut feel, instinctive view of a person. The things that we generally consider are the 7 things that we personally experience. 1. What is their message? 2. How authentic is the message with who they are and what we know? 3. Do they deliver what they say they will deliver? 4. Do we believe what they say? Are they credible? 5. Do they have integrity? 6. Are they trustworthy? And 7. How do they make us feel? And then there's the 4 things that people have heard. 1. What do our friends say about them? 2. Who are their advocates? And what do we think about their advocates? 3. What do their testimonials say about them or their service? And 4. What have they written? What's been written about them? All these are weighted, and the importance of each factor changes all the time. In the end, it's your intuition that is used to judge reputation, bringing in a myriad of factors. Does this mean that you cannot control how you are perceived? Well, yes and no. The most important evaluation that someone makes is whether the person that they're talking about has integrity. Integrity is knowing what is important to you and living your actions accordingly, as well as a refusal to engage in lying, blaming, or other behaviour generally seen to evade accountability. When people are buying expensive or intangible services, then their reliance on the feelings generated by the salesperson can become more important than the service they are buying, which fixes their problem. And this paradox means that we often buy emotionally. We buy a service because we trust the integrity of the person before us. Sometimes all we know about a service is the reputation of the person selling it to us. And the problem that faced Keith was that he wasn't demonstrating enough integrity when he was networking. He always seemed to be at odds with who he was and what he stood for. There were so many different messages and opinions about him. This had a massive impact on his potential advocates and customers, as they felt that he lacked authenticity and credibility. And no one buys from a salesman that they don't trust. Your emotional bank account. Think of a bank account, your bank account. You aim to have your bank account in credit and earning interest. Your emotional bank account is the same, and you have one for every person that you interact with. Every interaction has 3 possible outcomes. You can increase, decrease, or hold neutral your account status. Leverage is when you can begin to add interest. You can increase your emotional bank account in a number of ways, and examples include 1. Advocating other people. 2. Good referrals. 3. Helping other people achieve their goals. 4. Supporting others. And 5. Making other people feel good. And you can decrease your emotional bank account in a number of ways. Examples include 1. Ruining others' reputations unfairly. 2. Not delivering what you have promised. 3. Making others feel bad. 4. Being inauthentic. And 5. Abusing someone's good nature. It's important that you build your emotional bank account with others because you will need to make withdrawals over time, especially when you are networking for referrals and advocacy. When it decreases sufficiently, then your reputation will probably be irreparably ruined with that individual. This can have a far-reaching effect depending on how influential the other person is. Upsetting the wrong person can have a lasting effect on your reputation. It is often reported that good news is reported to only 3 people and bad news is reported to 20. If you have an emotional bank account that is in the red, then you may never recover. If you have a healthy account, then it's likely that your reputation with the other person will only be slightly negatively affected. Being your words in action. Keith was at a loss. How could he become more authentic? He knew he was credible in the sense that he knew his subject, but somehow that credibility wasn't spilling over into the day-to-day communication that he was having with others. People interact in many ways, and reputation is experienced by the things that people say about you when you're not there. This means that you have to have a consistent message and a consistent, personal, value-based brand. You are what people perceive that you are, as well as how you see yourself. If this is not in alignment, people may begin to distrust you. Keith realised that he was probably turning away people because they sensed a mismatch between his brand and his message. He realised that the mismatch was perception rather than reality, so he began to study how he was interacting with others. The first thing that he felt he needed to do was to become more attractive to others. And what this means is that he needed to become a magnet to draw others to him rather than have to pull them towards him. This is what is meant by push or pull selling of the individual and their ideas. And when we draw people to us, money tends to flow in our direction. It's a function of our personal brand. You will be known for something. Making a conscious decision of what that will be is the difference between having a personal brand and controlling one. People remember others for how they make them feel, not because of what they are selling. It's one of the bases on which business relationships are formed and developed. Isn't it true to say that when buying services, people choose to buy the relationship first and the service second? This is probably why it is often quoted that you need to touch your customer 7 times before they buy. Keith realised that in his pursuit to prove his credibility in some subjects, he had developed the habit of subtly discrediting others, either online or offline. This sometimes included his competition. The problem with this is that the people that he was interacting with perceived it negatively. It was often assumed that Keith may, one day, portray his audience's business in a bad light as well, or worse still, may not be very discreet in his business dealings. Keith knew that he needed to address these issues. No one buys from a salesman they don't trust. Building credibility. It's more than you knowing your craft. What other factors are necessary to determine Keith's credibility? Keith realised that as a new freelance consultant, he had done nothing to establish his credibility in the eyes of others. He was relying on other people believing what he said. He needed to establish himself as an expert in his subject area, and he needed some social proofing. Social proof is where an assumption is made that the people around us have a better knowledge of the situation, so we will accept their statements. It is because of social proofing that testimonials, especially video ones, could be so powerful, to tell other people exactly why they should buy your services. Keith didn't have any testimonials or any advocates. He was a lone voice whistling in the wind. No business can survive without advocates. Keith realised that he needed to focus his networking to get better results. He didn't have the time to spend meeting and greeting people if they were the wrong type of people, and he wasn't getting tangible results. He realised that he had to relearn what he thought networking was all about. You see, networking is not all about business. In fact, it's the social interactions that really make networking work. People want to help those that they like, which is why networking solely for business isn't as successful as networking to establish relationships for mutual benefit, even when you currently don't need anything. Networking is also an extension of your personal brand. It's about who you are, what you do, and what you want to be known for. It's also about how you convey your professionalism to others and how you manage trust and reputation. This means that the way you behave and the referrals that you provide to others is a reflection on yourself. Networking is a series of story-based conversations which build relationships and make it easy for others to understand you and your business. It is about advocacy and finding a route to market rather than seeing the individual you're talking to as your market. It took a long time for Keith to realise that there really wasn't any competition, just niche markets. Once he realised that essential truth, he began to look for ways to collaborate with those he once saw as competitors, and began to see how his networking was really gaining traction. More importantly, he's beginning to get some advocates. Could Keith blog himself to credibility? Keith decided to try a soft-selling approach and begin blogging around his expertise. He avoided selling in his articles, preferring to provide great content to his readership instead. This kept him at the forefront of others' minds and began to establish in his readership's eyes that he had credibility in the area that he worked in. Keith had begun to bridge the integrity gap. The added benefit was that it was a cheap way to market his knowledge. People are always searching for a solution to their problems and begin to trust and respect people that constantly provide solutions for them. Consultants aren't always able to be in a position to help their potential clients by dint of their inability to reach them. Often it is useful to find other ways to enter the same space that their clients are occupying. This is why demonstrating your expertise via the written word can be so important. Books are the best way to establish credibility via the written word, articles and blogs being good alternative sources. It is very easy to damage your credibility and reputation by what and how you write. Other people feel that their customers will only read what they write on their website or corporate blog, completely ignoring the fact that their customers, the individuals within the company, may well find the other things that they publish. For example, if you write in your personal blog intimate details about your customer, for example, the problems that they're facing, it will become known to them. Your reputation will be negatively impacted, and for a very long time. Reputation through leading. Keith realised that he was beginning to gain a good reputation for being an expert in his field. He was winning the battle on credibility, but he knew that there was a missing link between how he communicated his know-how and how he was perceived. He was definitely sabotaged his own ability to make money with people he did not know, and this was down to the way he was broadcasting his message when he was interacting personally with others. It is important to be aware of the situation that you are in when you are communicating, especially in live chats, instant messaging and fast-moving forums. It is harder to build your reputation these days without participating online. Keith already knew that by publishing online, for example blogs, articles, he would increase his credibility. Live chats and forums are an extension of this, but carry an increased danger of miscommunication and quickly damaging the writer's reputation. This is because these types of communications encourage the participants to believe that they are having a one-to-one conversation rather than a one-to-many conversation. The difference is an important one. Less care is taken with one-to-one conversations than one-to-many because often both participants know each other. This means that they understand each other's frame of reference, tolerance levels, and they can leverage each other's emotional bank accounts. This is useful if debates turn negative or argumentative. The challenge is understanding that in these mediums there are often people watching the conversations or lurking and forming their own opinions based on what they see. If they do not know you well, then the only judgment that they make is based on your online presence. If you become known for holding controversial-sided opinions on things or taking a defensive stance, then this could adversely affect your reputation. Key's problem was that he took part in debating on and offline, but online his method was destroying his reputation and affecting his earning potential. He inadvertently offended readers that he didn't even know he was engaging with. We all have presence. We demonstrate this with the way we stand, our moods, our attitude and our body language. It's in the way that we occupy space. This is true when we occupy space online. Over time we create presence with the way we write. Each post, blog, thread builds up your reputation letter by letter. The right presence gets you respect and attention. Demonstrating leadership competencies can make a tangible difference to how you are perceived and how well you can build and enhance your reputation. These competencies include, amongst other things, integrity, honesty, trust, strong values, looking for the win-win in each situation, and credibility. John C. Maxwell once said, "Leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less." And this is something well worth remembering. Great leaders will always have someone to follow them. If Keith acts and demonstrates key leadership competencies, he will have a steady following of clients and advocates. When the doors close, opportunities can open. Keith has shown us how important it is to build, maintain and grow your reputation to earn money. Your reputation will take months to build up, but can be destroyed in a moment. There are many things that contribute to your reputation. Each component needs to be worked on at the same time. When you're working for yourself and selling your services, all you have is your reputation. Use it wisely, for without it, you will not survive. Thank you once again for tuning into the Maverick Paradox Podcast. I hope you have enjoyed listening to When the Doors Close. It was interesting revisiting that. I wrote that chapter in 2005, and while it's satisfying that some of my Maverick approach to networking is applicable today as it was then, things have moved on a bit. My own views have become more nuanced and sophisticated in the intervening years, and if I was asked to write that chapter today, I think it would be quite different. If you would like to learn more about Mavericks and leadership, then please subscribe to my podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or one of the other popular podcast platforms. Find out how willful independence can ultimately change all our futures. Next time, I will be with an interesting guest ready to explore the mysteries of leadership. Thanks again, and see you soon.